The Master of Magnetism has a polarizing presence. This is your look at the Diamond Select X-Men the Animated Series Magneto Resin Bust. This resin bust of Magneto is based on his appearance in the X-Men the Animated Series and features detailed sculpting and cartoon-accurate paint applications. Is limited to only 3,000 pieces and includes a numbered certificate of authenticity. It was designed by Barry Bradfield and sculpted by Paul Harding. Before we get this review underway, the first thing we're going to want to do is figure out how tall the resin bust of Magneto stands. I'd like to thank the folks also over at Diamond Select that provided the sample of Magneto that we're having a look at in this review. If you're a big fan of X-Men, specifically the 90s X-Men cartoon, and would like to add this one to your collection, the resin bust of Magneto is currently available right now in comic book stores and online as well. Magneto stands, and probably standing is not the best way to describe it, but nonetheless, he's 6.4 inches in height, so he's about 6.5. Switching that to centimeters, then you look at the resin bust of Magneto being 16.4 centimeters in height. Yes, saying standing is probably not the best way to describe Magneto. After all, he is a resin bust with only his waist up. To come included with the statue, if you pick this one up for yourself, you get yourself a certificate of authenticity indicating that this is an authentic Diamond Select Toys Marvel and X-Men Animated Series Magneto resin bust. And that's a mouthful. Tells you again who was designed and sculpted by. And it also tells you down below here the number out of the limited run of 3,000 copies. Now, while it may seem that 3,000 copies would be a quantity of wide availability, in actual fact, 3,000 does go pretty fast when you think it stretches across the globe. So if you haven't had a chance already to pick this one up, and if your comic book store doesn't have it, see if they can actually order one in for you. But it's always good to include the certificate of authenticity, especially if you ever decide down the road to sell these. I try not to ever go down that route unless space becomes limited, but I always like to keep, of course, that certificate of authenticity. It's always good, and buyers will be interested to have that included when they buy the statue from you. That being said, let's get a closer look at Magneto. We'll go ahead and pick him up. And as I indicated, he's a resin bust, so literally from the waist down is completely gone. We flip the statue. Actually, before we flip this up, I want to show you guys the actual base bottom to this. I do like the coloring that they used for this. Dark gray-based purples. Right across from the top to the very bottom. Little bands of black have also been thrown in there as well. I do like these little vented areas. It all adds a little bit of interest and appeal to my eyes when I'm looking at this. There's something to actually focus in on as opposed to just a smooth base. So I really like that. Very carefully tilting it upside down so you can see the bottom. Again, you get yourself Marvel manufactured by Diamond Select Toys made in China with, again, that number. Because this was provided as an artist proof, that number out of 3,000 is omitted on mine, but the one that you pick up for yourself, you'll find the number listed right there. You also get yourself 4 rubber feet. So, of course, like all other cases, when you put this down on a surface, a tabletop, a shelf space, and you are moving this around, those felt feet not only protect the bottom of the base of the statue, but of course prevent scratching on the surfaces where you put the statue for yourself. Okay, so let's get a closer look at Magneto. Big fan of the 90s X-Men cartoon series. I'm sure many other fans of X-Men also preferred that cartoon series because it really did focus on a lot of X-Men stories pulled from the pages of their comic books. Quite prevalent, of course, in the animated series was Magneto. And Magneto, I think, represented here quite nicely from Diamond Select. Sure, yes, you don't have any bit of the lower half of Magneto. It's been trimmed right off. But all the parts that you do see of him have been very faithfully painted, recreating the way he looks in the cartoon. One touch that I really do appreciate is that they have the casted shadow. Because Magneto, of course, is wearing the helmet over top of his head, natural shadow would be draping then onto his eye area. And they've done a good job of doing that in black. Now, while you may look at that and say perhaps it's too stark of a black, if you ever watched the animated series of X-Men, a lot of times how they shadowed their characters wasn't a transition of dark color to light. Instead, it was a very dark, bold line. Johnny Quest, I believe, was also a series that did a very similar way of shadowing their characters. A lot of times, again, it was just a very dark line representing the shadow. And a lot of that, actually, when you see on Magneto, isn't really necessarily present here, but I like the fact that they incorporated that a little bit on his face. So all the areas, the dark areas of his eyes, do then stand out because you're adding that dark shadowing of black. I love, again, that little bit of reflection right here. It's not even really necessarily reflection, as of course it's been painted on in black, but it's all those little touches that give it that feel like the original X-Men cartoon. You see a lot more of that also happening on this side as well. It's not completely the same. It's not symmetrical on both sides, so there's a lot more of it here on this side. So again, when it comes to where you want to put the statue, and depending on what angle you want to put it, I might actually put it on more of an angle this way, so I see a lot more of the black on this side of his helmet. I do also like the pose that they put him in as well. That's a very Magneto pose, if I could just say that. His cape is long, it's flowing, and of course it jets up the shoulders as it did in the cartoon and the comics. I also like the little riveted points here as well. These are the areas that, unlike in the cartoon, I think would have been just done all in dark black. Instead, they've actually done the transitioning of the dark purple, medium purple, and then the lighter purple, which makes up the majority of his cape here. Dark panel lining represents all the areas that are outlining his muscles. So, for example, in his abdomen, his pectorals, and even the side of his rib cage, they're all detailed. They're lifted there as well. Don't think it's just simply that they drew the lines on there. All the places that actually have the contoured lines painted in black they do actually have a sculpt to them. So you can run your finger across it and feel for yourself that they actually did sculpt that in there. I do really like also, if you look at it from certain angles, maybe you can actually see it. There's a lighter color that they've also, yes, they've airbrushed darker color, but there's also a little bit of a lighter color, a gradient that's right above there as well, that really then, when you're looking at it, accents those areas on Magneto's body quite well. I know I've already said this, but I do really like the pose that they put him in. Now, they could technically have done like an energy effect around him. I mean, that probably would have been a little more difficult to pull off with resin. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that's a perfect looking pose for Magneto. One hand with extended fingers on the one side, one closed fist down below on the other. Again, one last thing we'll have a look at is the cape. We'll spin that around. Something you really then marvel, no pun intended, the amount of paint and care that they put actually into the statue. Again, you got that dark color that I really like up down here. Lighter colors around the top section here, and all those riveted points that I liked a lot on the front are also done the exact same way with the same amount of care on the back of him as well. Longtime viewers, I'm sure, will know how much I dig these resin busts that Diamond Select have been putting out over the years, hooking me in initially with the Batman animated series run. From there it branched off into the Justice League. Before I knew it, I was knee-deep in collecting the Marvel ones with the X-Men resin busts. I don't think they've released as much of the resin busts as they've released all the other ones that I just mentioned, but based on the amount of styling and paint profiling that they actually put to these statues, I really would be excited to see more of them come out. With things like on the X-Men cartoon, for example, that dark shadowing that the cartoon was known for having, I like a little bit of it making an appearance on Magneto. Too much of it, I think, would have pulled away from the statue and ruined it, or detracted a little bit from the sculpting of the statue. Instead, what they ended up doing was keep most of that black shadowing around the areas of his eyes and the areas of his helmet, and keeping the rest of his body more that cel-shaded styling. Some of the X-Men episodes, if you ever go back and watch them, I don't know if they changed animation houses, but there's definitely a difference with some of the later season runs where the X-Men cartoon, they actually had a much different animation style. The earlier end of the cartoon episodes definitely had that much dark shadowing, and I do like the fact that a lot of that makes its way to Magneto. It's not too much to the point where it ruins the statue. It's just the right amount that gives it that X-Men animated series feel and vibe. Big fan of this one, especially the fact I like Magneto. This one really turned out super cool. A big thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select, of course, that provided the sample of the Magneto that we had a look at in this review. Let me know in the comment section if you've picked this one up, or if you've picked up any of the resin busts that Diamond Select have been putting over the years. I know a lot of the viewers on here were big fans of the Batman animated series busts, and I know you guys have been collecting those, but have you been collecting any of the other resin busts? Always like reading your comments down below. If you are new to the channel and you're liking all the content you're seeing, consider then the idea, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button down below. turn the bell notification on as a reminder to tell YouTube that you want to see when new videos of mine are popping up. But I can also throw then into the mix that just know that Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when you'll find new videos popping up on this channel. And there's always new videos popping up as we literally are going through 10 videos a week. It's always new content coming your way. Lots of also new Diamond Select statue reviews coming your way, so keep your peepers peeled for that. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.